Okay, let's unpack this. We're talking about a chimpanzee named Bruno Littlemore, and he's recounting his own life story.
Yeah, from a research facility down in Georgia. He's calling it semi-retirement, which is,
Yeah.
well, one way to put it.
Right, especially since it follows what he calls a more or less murder. Just think about that premise for a second.
It definitely hooks you. So our source here isn't like a scientific paper. It's a novel.
Exactly. The Evolution of Bruno Littlemore by Benjamin Hale. And we're diving straight into Bruno's completely unique first-person narrative. It's really not every day you get a life story from a chimp who thinks and talks like this.
No, you don't. And what's so compelling right off the bat is that we're inside a non-human consciousness, supposedly. It's not, just observing behavior. It's asking what it might feel like.
Mm-hmm. Memory, feelings, even grappling with morality.
Yeah.
From his perspective.
It's a huge leap.
And his life is just
Yes.
wild. Language experiments, yeah, but then living with humans, really living with them, even getting into art. So, for you listening, if you want the core insights without, reading the whole novel right now, we're pulling out the most fascinating bits. We want to get to the heart of these questions about animal minds, the human-animal line, how learning happens, relationships.
All the juicy stuff.
All the juicy stuff, none of the filler.
But we should, definitely keep in mind this is fiction. It's imagined.
Oh, absolutely. It's presented as his account, but it's a novel.
Right. But it uses that fictional setup to ask some really deep questions about intelligence, communication, how we even try to understand other species. Fiction lets you explore possibilities, right? Things maybe hard science can't quite touch in the same way.
Good point. So let's start with where Bruno is now, this research center in Georgia, semi-retirement. And one thing he does is paint. His art actually gets sold, makes money for the center.
Which is interesting in itself.
But he says he only paints to salve the wounds of his troubled heart. That's a pretty complex reason.
It really is.
Yeah.
It suggests, an inner life, processing emotions through art. Is it like human self-expression? Does he know it's being sold? It just opens up so many questions beyond simple animal behavior.
And his other big project, he's planning to stage Buchner's Wojciech, starring himself.
I mean, wow. Wojciech, that suggests understanding narrative, theme, the human condition maybe. That's ambitious, to say the least.
Definitely. And he has visitors. His friend Leon Smaller comes. They talk philosophy. He even admits manipulating his keepers with his paintings.
See? That shows a grasp of psychology, social dynamics. He's not just reacting, he's interacting, maybe even controlling things a bit.
But here's the twist. Despite being, confined, he says, I have no desire to be elsewhere.
Which is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Physically stuck,
Yeah.
but mentally,
Yeah.
maybe free, through art, ideas.
That makes you wonder what freedom means to him.
Exactly. And then there's that casual mention of the past, more or less, murder.
Yeah.
And he'd do it again.
Whoa.
It adds this layer of moral complexity, or maybe amorality. Hard to categorize.
Totally. It throws a wrench in any easy understanding.
Okay, let's rewind. His early life, there was this tapping experiment, loads of chimps, but only Bruno kept tapping persistently. And Lydia, this researcher, she saw that as him understanding what it means to be human. What do you make of that interpretation?
Well, the tapping itself is interesting. Focus. A different way of thinking. Lydia's interpretation. Well, it might be seeing what she wants to see. A bit anthropomorphic, maybe.
Yeah, could be.
But it definitely highlights how we humans look for connection, for reflections of ourselves in animals.
True. He was born in captivity, Lincoln Park Zoo. His father, Rot Peter, had a rough history. Captured wild, trafficked, ended up in zoos, and apparently just full of rage about losing his freedom.
Yeah.
A very dominant chimp.
And that's a powerful backstory, isn't it? Rot Peter's rage versus Bruno, born never knowing wild freedom. It's like a shadow hanging over him, maybe.
While his mother, born in a zoo too, just seemed to accept it all.
Different experiences shaping them. And Bruno felt disconnected, didn't feel he belonged with his mother or sister, Celeste. No, sexual attraction there either.
That's interesting.
But human women, from early on, he was fascinated.
That early disconnect is huge, isn't it? Feeling like an outsider to his own kind, drawn to humans. It sets the stage for everything, really. That sense of being other.
Okay, so language, how did that happen? This guy, Haywood Finch at the University of Chicago, big figure,
Right.
started with flashcards, gestures, the usual stuff. But Haywood got creative, used these nonsense sounds, ooh, like that, or shouting, B8, paired with like jangling keys as a reward. What was that about?
Well, maybe he was trying to tap into something more basic, like rhythm, sound, before formal language. getting Bruno's brain wired differently, perhaps. And the keys.
Yeah.
That's classic positive reinforcement, right? Making the connection strong.
And apparently it worked. He started making sounds gibberish at first, but finding the musicality in language. First actual word, Haywood. Then his own name, Bruno. He was really into the R sound in his name.
The phonetics, yeah.
But the breakthrough. Okay, imagine this. He understood language but couldn't speak it yet. The frustration must have been immense.
Oh, I bet. Trapped inside his own head, in a way.
So he demands a tape recorder, demands it. Haywood leaves, comes back, and Bruno just belts it out loud and clear. Bruno!
Wow. That's huge. Speaking your own name. It's claiming identity, isn't it? Self-recognition through sound. After all that frustration, demanding the tool he needed, that's agency.
Big time. And that changed everything. No more cage at night, and eventually Lydia takes him home.
Right, the researcher from the tapping experiment.
Yeah. It's November, freezing Chicago winter. She brings him to her apartment, and the book gives you this super detailed tour, living room, kitchen, hall, even the half bath.
Mm-hmm. That detail really matters, I think.
Why is that?
Well, it makes this extraordinary situation feel ordinary, grounded.
Mm-hmm.
It also shows us Bruno's perspective, right? He's noticing everything, taking in this human world meticulously.
He really is. He watches her routines. He's fascinated by her stuff, clothes, especially intimate items.
Right.
There's the scene in a department store with mannequins. He gets a bit too interested. Lydia ends up having to leash him.
Oops. Boundaries being tested or misunderstood.
And he was really drawn to the salesgirl's feet, apparently.
It shows this developing awareness, maybe sexual interest, but filtered through his chimp understanding, right?
Yeah.
He's figuring out human bodies and rules, often awkwardly.
And Lydia, she had these awful headaches, insomnia, seemed linked to her cycle. The book describes it really vividly, like a hatchet in her head, industrial noises.
Oof, sounds rough.
And Bruno watches her suffer. It seems like he genuinely feels for her. What does that tell us about his capacity for empathy?
Well, if it's genuine empathy, it really challenges our assumptions, doesn't it? That complex feeling, understanding another's pain across species, it suggests a deep emotional connection building.
And it seems to lead somewhere. There's this middle of the night scene. His physical reaction to her, realizing he's not scared of her when she's unconscious anymore, it feels like a massive shift.
Yeah, that's definitely crossing the line. Fear turning into desire. It moves their whole relationship from student-teacher or subject-researcher into something much, much more complicated. And maybe dangerous.
Then the love letter thing slips a note under the bathroom door, and Lydia reacts by cutting off all her long blonde hair.
Whoa. Drastic. Why do you think she did that?
It's hard to say, isn't it? Confusion, panic, trying to regain control, maybe a symbolic gesture. It definitely shows how unsettling Bruno's feelings were for her.
Unprecedented territory for sure.
But they also had these incredibly close moments, spending weekends in bed, him painting her nude. They even developed their own private language, a lover's dialect.
A lover's dialect.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it? About the intimacy, the unique bond they forge. A communication beyond words, built just between them. It's quite profound, really.
Yeah.
Beyond Lydia, though, Bruno is observing humans all the time. He gets the whole funny ape thing, why people laugh at chimps in clothes.
Mm-hmm.
But he wonders about apes who choose human culture, not just perform it. What's he getting at there?
He's seeing how humans objectify them. Right?
Yeah.
Turn them into jokes. But if an ape chooses it,
Yeah.
is that real integration? Or just another kind of performance? He's questioning authenticity, I think.
Then there was that awful presentation for Norm Plumley's colleagues. Bruno just froze, couldn't perform, and the students laughed.
Oh, that sounds humiliating. The pressure must have been immense. Perform, prove you're intelligent, validate the research.
And failing publicly like that. Rough.
Yeah, shows the anxiety of trying to bridge that species gap under a spotlight.
Remember the wine incident, Lydia and Tell talking about gnome chompy?
Bone chumpy.
Yeah, must be Norm Plumley. But they're whispering, being conspiratorial. And Bruno imagines this actual, like, monster gnome.
Huh. Okay, so he's trying to figure out human secrets, gossip, but getting it kind of wrong,
Yeah.
imaginatively wrong.
Yeah, and then there's a puppet dance scene with Tal and Lydia, and he feels this weird connection to the puppets.
Maybe he sees something of himself in them, manipulated figures, or just connects with the nonverbal aspect. It shows his mind constantly trying to make sense of things.
Then the raisin incident. Tal keeps trying to give him one. He doesn't want it, gets mad, bites her hand.
Uh-oh.
Students freak out, run away. Lydia gets it, but he's confined to the lab again for a bit. and he hated raisins ever after.
See, even with language, basic instincts, chimp behaviors are still there.
Yeah.
Communication breaks down. It's a reminder that he's not fully human, and there are boundaries, consequences.
There are other odd encounters, too. The balloon artist, Bruno, wanting a human balloon.
A human balloon. Wow, that's poignant, isn't it? Wanting to connect, to belong in such a specific way.
Yeah. And that disastrous art gallery opening norm setup. Some woman, Regina Lawrence, gives this talk that Bruno finds totally incomprehensible.
It sounds like a whirlwind of trying to navigate human culture, art scenes, social rituals, and just finding it baffling sometimes.
Then things get heavier. Reverend Jeb shows up protesting outside their apartment. Really flamboyant guy, apparently.
Right, the controversy hitting home.
And Bruno starts this silent rebellion during EEG tests, clenching his jaw to mess up the readings.
Clever, a small act of defiance. Showing his agency, even when he seems passive.
But the stress gets to Lydia. She starts losing her hair.
Oh man, the pressure cooker environment really taking its toll.
And then it really goes bad. They find the back door smashed in. Lydia's gone.
Oh yeah.
Bruno gets captured, ends up back in a research facility. He escapes this frantic flight through cages of other chimps. It feels like a total rupture.
Definitely. The stability, however strange, is gone. Now it's fear, survival, escape.
He winds up finding refuge with a little girl, Emily, in her little princess playhouse.
Seriously. A playhouse.
Yeah. And they have these surprisingly grown-up chats. She drops lines like, "Shit, my mom's home." She's good at math. And Bruno's actually envious of her education.
That's incredible. An unexpected connection. And his envy. It shows his ongoing intellectual curiosity, doesn't it? What he feels he's missed out on.
He even tries wearing her dad's clothes to disguise himself.
Bit futile, maybe, but understandable. Wanting to blend in.
So then he heads to New York City on a train, trying to keep a low profile.
Must have been intense.
And on the subway, he has this moment of deep reflection, asking those big questions. Who are we? Where did we come from? Where are we going? He sees himself as an animal, but with human parts, adrift.
Wow, that's it? That's existential stuff. Coming from him, in that situation, it hits hard, being caught between worlds.
In New York, he finds Leon Smaller again, his friend, and Leon seems to just get him, accepts his animality.
That must have been huge for Bruno.
Acceptance.
They perform Shakespeare in the subway. Leon does magic shows. They kind of build this life.
A very New York life, it sounds like.
But Bruno gets this fixation. He wants a nose, a human nose. He finds a Dr. De Silva to do the surgery. Why a nose, do you think? It's so specific. Maybe wanting to look more human, to fit in better. Or maybe it's symbolic, like wanting a more complete identity, shedding the last visible sign of being other. Hard to say for sure.
They even plan to stage The Tempest with Leon and Emily's mom. That falls through. He tries to borrow money from Leon for the nose job. That goes badly.
Sounds like a string of grand plans and near misses.
The surgery itself, he describes being under anesthesia as this weird, hazy, out-of-body thing.
Yeah, those descriptions can be really surreal, underlining his vulnerability maybe.
Then he wakes up in a car, Leon's ex-wife's car, with a cop there. His face is bandaged, painful, confused.
Oh, chaos. What happened?
It's a bit muddled, but eventually the bandages come off, the nose reveal. Then this bizarre quest to find Leon's great uncle, a locksmith, involving a very strange elevator ride.
This whole section feels increasingly surreal, almost farcical.
Yeah, they have another big idea, some multi-sensory theater thing, but that doesn't happen either. It's just ambition constantly hitting roadblocks.
A lot of striving, but reality keeps intruding.
So they take the train back to Chicago. Bruno goes to his old apartment building, and he runs into Tal.
Tal from the lab. The raisin incident.
The very same.
Yeah.
She looks different, and she tells him, Lydia died 6 months ago.
Oh, wow. Devastating.
Yeah. She tells him about the illness, how she passed, and Bruno's grief is delayed. It hits him later. Why do you think it was delayed?
Trauma, maybe? Displacement? Just the sheer weight of everything he'd been through. Maybe he couldn't process it right away, needed time for it to sink past all the other chaos.
Makes sense. His final act in the human world is pretty dramatic. He breaks Celeste, his sister, out of some...
His sister from the zoo.
Yeah, and they check into the Palmer House Hilton Hotel using Norm Plumley's credit card.
Ha. A final act of rebellion. And luxury, I guess.
Then he visits Lincoln Park Zoo, sees his family, his father, Rot Peter, still the same angry old chimp.
A full circle moment.
And then he just
Sure.
leaves. Leaves the zoo, leaves that life, walks away from freedom in human society. It feels like giving up, almost.
Or maybe acceptance. Accepting he doesn't belong there either. a final departure, choosing solitude, perhaps.
Mhm.
It's ambiguous.
So, looking back at this whole incredible story, what are the big takeaways? His consciousness is just undeniable, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the complexity of his relationships,
Mm.
his sharp observations about us humans, it constantly blurs that line we try to draw between human and animal.
Themes of language, learning, love, loss,
Mhm.
and just that fundamental search for somewhere to belong. It's all in there.
Yeah, and for you listening, the real aha moment, I think, is how Bruno's story just shakes up our usual ideas about animal intelligence, feelings, self-awareness.
Hmm.
You can see this fresh perspective, sometimes funny, sometimes tragic, on our own world. Makes us think about what being human even means and how we relate to other thinking, feeling beings.
Which leads to that final thought we want to leave you with. If a being like Bruno, with his capacity for language, for deep emotion, can exist even in fiction, how should that make us reconsider the ethical boundaries we draw?
Right. What responsibilities might we have towards individuals like him, real or potential? It's a heavy question. Maybe picking up the evolution of Bruno Littlemore is the way to keep wrestling with it.